A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to all. I'm Arun Kumar Seni, Associate Dean ICFAI Tech, ICFAI University Jaipur. On behalf of ICFAI University Jaipur, I take the honor to welcome all our esteemed participants and associates. Friends, allow me the privilege to introduce our today's guest speaker, the visionary, the legendary, the enterprising, and institution in himself. He is only one of his kind, the man who has inspired and earned millions of ardent admirers, the earnest followers who aspire to carve their own identity. Sri Maheshwar Peri sir, the name that has had a life-changing impact on millions, the one who takes pride in challenging the existing, daring to swim against the tides. With bachelors in mathematics and economics, he was one of the youngest chartered accountants in the country. This was followed by a series of finest qualifications from the most prestigious institutions, including ICWAI and ICSI. Nevertheless, his inspiring journey was destined to take a phenomenal turn, repositioning him as a chartered career shaper for millions of millions. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Sir, I have with me Dr. Rajesh Kothari,
Hello, sir.
President ICFAI University Jaipur. I request Honorable President sir to formally welcome Maheshwar Peri.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Well, I'm Dr. Rajesh Kothari,
Hello, sir.
currently Vice Chancellor of ICFAI University Jaipur.
Yeah.
And it's indeed, I will say, a privilege to welcome a person of his stature to be our guide, our mentor, and throwing some key issues to us. I have been into this profession for almost, you can say, more than 3.5 decades. Whole life I've spent among the students only, and I believe that the right choice of a career is as crucial as you breathe in spotlessly and effortlessly. We do not know what is going to happen 4 years from now, 3 years from now. Suppose today I take decisions to join civil engineering, for example. Now, today it turns out to be very good, very rosy, very promising one. After 4 years, I don't know what's going to happen to us. So, one issue with that I intend to raise on behalf of all the students and faculty, etc. How do you visualize the engineering courses? Once upon a time, civil, mechanical, electrical, electronics would demand, right? And perhaps the parents would feel happy that his son and daughter are pursuing BTech in engineering. What I can say, the engineering program in electronics, electricals, mechanical, etc., etc. Clear? And now I think most of them pursue only one stream, and that is the computer science, that is the data science, that is something called this one only. So do you foresee that the traditional branches like civil, mechanical, electrical have lived their life? They are no longer in demand. Number two, what life do you foresee for the new high-tech program called AI, called data science, called other? I mean, like big data analysis and cloud computing and whatnot. Kindly excuse me for my little understanding about engineering stream. Third issue which I intend to foresee is why it is so crazy about writing for only one stream exam is there, the IIT. People are crazy for IIT only. And again in IIT, most of them land up doing computer science, and that too, given the choice, they like to go for IIT Bombay, but that turns out to be so-called, people say, I'm not sure about it. Then, how do you read a psyche of a student who is keen to pursue the engineering career, but then he doesn't make it? Even if he turns out to be engineer, he is not very successful in the real life. So one side, you got the real life based career, other side, you have the real life challenge career only. Clear? I'm happy that you have spent some time and trying to address our students in COVID-19, post-COVID-19, pre-COVID-19. Perhaps bigger the crisis, bigger the opportunities one. At least we could catch hold of you because of COVID-19 only. Had there been normal situation, you would have been inaccessible to us. Nevertheless, Maheshwar, I request you in simple, honest words, please, whenever you get time to be in Jaipur, do visit this university called ICFAI University Jaipur. The university has only one simple statement: ethics and merit are blended here. The most commonly term, we don't compromise with ethics. We are ethical people, transparent people, simple people, down to the earth, and therefore we need support and strength from a person of your stature. Come visit, talk to us. You will feel that There is no kind of show business. Extremely simple, because we believe that education for all. I've been talking to my management number of times, and they said, "Look, our university should look like a Gurukul kind of these things. It should not look like an extension of any 5-star, 7-star, 3-star kind of properties one." And I tell students, infrastructure support to a level more important is academics one. So at Equa University, we believe academics. We believe talking of a man in the last queue, and we take them along with us. So once again, I welcome, sir, me and my faculty members and the entire staff joining you, giving a big warm welcome to you, with understanding and with the request, whenever you get a time to be in Jaipur, please do visit us. Will be benefited, and my student will stay blessed. Will be blessed by you, your discourse, your guiding. You know what happens in the life, sir? Everyone needs some kind of dronacharya. Clear? Now, one dronacharya will set number of Arjuns. 1,000 Arjuns can't produce a dronacharya. So this is my humble submission to you, sir. Once again, I welcome to you, go from Korabai heart, and I believe between you and your prospective student, I shouldn't stay more. So over to you, sir, Mr. Maheshwar Pari, sir.
Thank you so much for that introduction, sir. I think it's been very warm. I don't think I am deserving of everything that you said, but you said it, and you have to withdraw it, not me.
No, but I stand by it.
Yeah, I understand that.
No withdrawals.
Yeah. But I think, is it for, can I start off now? The students are there, or you? How does this go? If you can tell me.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
you just
Okay.
you start, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. So, students, I think we are going through very disruptive times, so to say. India was never a market for online education. India was never a market where teaching could have been done online the way it's being done now. But we have been pushed to the wall, and India normally reacts. Whenever we are pushed to the wall, we react with a zeal that the world is always in disbelief. I'm told that as we speak now, about 230 million students are studying online. If you were to say this in the month of December 2019 or Jan 2020 also, that 230 million students from India would be studying online, it would be laughed at. But at this point in time, it's happening. And that is what is the resilience of the country, which is India. That when we're pushed to the wall, when the options are limited, we excel in everything that we do, and we seem to be excelling. And schools are happening normally, colleges are happening normally, sessions are happening normally. Of course, there is a bit of disruption because people who don't have a device have a problem, people who don't have connectivity have a problem, but that's what we are. The first thing I will tell to students who are about to get into college or about to pass out of college is that this 1 year is a free ticket for most of you, because most of us, institutions, corporates, leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, owners, everyone is not likely to achieve what they thought they will achieve. And that's because the times are such. The disruption that is happening in the economy, in the country, the pandemic that's creating a havoc is something that no one has seen. None of us in my generation has seen this kind of a disruption where you don't know whether the exam would be held or not. And assuming it is held, when would it be held? Assuming it will be held, whether it will be held the same way it used to be held earlier. So in a certain sense, the disruption is complete. Now, all of you students would say, why my batch? Why not some other batch? Which is right. It is a fact that your batch seems to be struggling with the uncertainty more than any other in the history in the last 30, 40 years. And to that extent, you will be a bit more hurt than any other batch in the past 30, 40 years. But what you must not do is to take it personally. The disruption that is happening is not because of you, and the disruption that is happening will not hurt only you, or not you'll not be the only person that is being affected, right? Which essentially means that just imagine for a moment that you walked into an examination hall and you got the toughest paper in the world. That you thought you will answer about 70 out of the 100 questions that will come in, but the paper is so tough that even an excellent student can't answer more than 50 of the questions, which means it's normalized, right? That all of you are going to face a similar impact. All of you will be affected similarly. It would not be, it will be very linear. It will be very secular in the sense that everyone is hurt or benefited exactly the same way. That's the first part. The second part of it is none of you is responsible for what's happened, which means that you should not take it personally. You should not feel, oh, kya hua mere saath? Oh my God, what is happening to me? Because it's not just with you, it's happening with everyone around you, including your parents, your leaders, your friends, your relatives, you name it. There won't be anyone who will be left untouched by what is currently happening. And so to that extent, don't take it personally and use this time to say, okay, if I have a 1 year free ticket, which means that, for example, let's assume for a moment that the placement season has been disrupted completely, and the companies are least likely to recruit the way they were recruiting earlier, which also means that if your chances of getting placed in a company were 7 out of 10, the 7 out of 10 will become 5 out of 10 this time, right? Which means 20% people will be getting, possibly, I'm using only in numbers out of my gut and nothing more. This is not a measured thing. It's not a something that I calculated and telling you. But if the chances are 7 out of 10, it becomes 5 out of 10. The 2 out of 10 don't need to feel guilty, because there are many of you who want to go through this crisis. So how do you use this time? How do you not sit idle for the next 1 year saying कि मेरे साथ क्या होगा, मेरे placement क्या होगा? Because there are many people like you who have not been placed, and the worst thing is there are many people who are already placed somewhere who are not likely to join there also. There are many people who are working there who are likely to be losing their jobs also. So the question is, you cannot change the external environment. So what would you do if you can't change the external environment? You will say, how can I be ahead of the queue? How can I be better than what I was when I passed out, in making myself more capable and more able and more qualified to be getting the job, which, if at all, if it comes up. And I'm sure it'll all open up and many jobs will come up as we move along in the next 3-6 months. Things will start turning around and we'll start getting back to normalcy. So at that point in time, you should be slightly ahead of the queue. So what should you do? And from that perspective is what you should plan in terms of making use of this time, this 6 months to 1 year that you have in your space, to see how you can learn, upskill yourself to become more qualified and be ahead of a queue. Otherwise, you'll be a part of a queue, and that is not the way you should go about. I always say that just try to be ahead of the queue. The other thing is, engineering as a profession. My first thing is that there is nothing called, I'm obviously assuming that most of you are students who've taken math, physics, and chemistry, and some of you would have taken, biology, zoology also in the process. So you would be PCM students or PCB students in a sense, trying to take engineering as an option. You must remember that, this entire thing of doing engineering was with a uninformed, set of data, or belief or perception that if you do engineering, you'll get placed. I'll give you broad numbers so that you understand where you're coming from. If you take the batch of 2009, which passed out in 2009, which means they got into engineering in 2005 and passed out in 2009, you had about 350,000 to 400,000 students who got into engineering. And in 2009, all of them were placed, which means about 90 to 100% students, whoever wanted a job, were placed. Because only 400,000 students got into engineering in 2005 rather, and passed out in 2009. That is the golden years of our services sector, where Infosys was expanding, Wipro was expanding, TCS was expanding, Accenture, Cognizant, Genpact, you name it, every single company was expanding, and they were taking by the hordes. Each of them would take 30,000 students, 40,000 students and all. The current times, if you were to look at the batches passing out in 2019, about 1.4 or 1.5 million students passed out. But the number of students who were placed is still 400,000 only. Because the number of jobs haven't expanded while the universities expanded. Within the universities, courses expanded. Within the courses, the number of seats per course also expanded. If you look around you, you're sitting in Jaipur as we speak. Think of the universities that you had in 2004 and think of the universities that you have in 2019. You would suddenly realize that 5-6 universities that did not exist in 2004 now exist. That's the first part. Within the existing universities of 2004 also, you would have seen that many of them the intake was 240 or 300, and now it's become 600 or 900 and all. So the existing universities expanded, new universities came in. So the number of students who are preferring engineering as a career path has almost quadrupled, if not more. In this process, the job market hasn't expanded at that level, in which is linear to the expansion of the number of seats that you have or created, right? So to that extent, what was 100% placement now is about 30-40% placement is what you deal with. But having said that, the other students who passed out, it's not that they're sitting idle. They're working somewhere else. They take on certain other jobs. They go for higher studies. Some of them become entrepreneurs. Some of them create their own businesses. So there are multiple paths that people are taking. So one is to believe that engineering will give you a guaranteed job is wrong, as much as to also believe that if you don't get a job, you'll be idle also is wrong. Because if you don't get a job, and that's that is resilience of the human being, that if we don't get a job, we'll do something to keep ourselves employed and hopefully productively employed. So you will actually see a lot of people who are engineers who are doing certain things, including sales, including marketing, including business development, and so on and so forth. So the first thing I'll tell students who are looking at engineering is, don't for one moment believe that because you created, you got into engineering, you will ultimately end up retiring as an engineer somewhere. That's not likely to happen. Two, in the current times, especially in these uncertain times, please ensure that you are flexible and resilient. For example, let's assume for a moment that this year there's a batch of students who are passing out from hospitality and travel and tourism thing. So they've done MBA in hospitality. Now, hospitality is the worst affected sector at this point in time, right? Why would a hotel even recruit people? They have to first work too hard to retain people. Travel has stopped, tourism has stopped, people are not going anywhere, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of retrenchment that is happening in the hospitality sector. So what does one do? Because hospitality is all about being good to the customer, talking nice to the customer, ensuring that there is customer satisfaction and all, they're becoming customer sales executives. Because the resilience and the flexibility will ensure that they start looking at ancillary industries or skill sets where their skills are in demand, right? So for you as engineers also, you must be flexible and resilient in terms of saying that, okay, even if I were to do mechanical engineering, I'll be flexible enough in getting onto something which need not be directly linked or related to mechanical engineering. And that flexibility, if you don't have, then you will suffer. So my suggestion to you is that, don't think that engineering will lead to a guaranteed placement, and don't think that if you're not placed, you will be idle. Both are equally wrong. And the other thing is, obviously, as I said, most of you are doing PCM, so you would want to do engineering. You must also keep your options of and some of you would do engineering because you've taken PCM. That doesn't need to be a compulsion for you. And the reason is simple, that, a student who's taken PCM with math as a subject can do any course. It can be on the sciences side or on the commerce side or the art side, or anything he can do. The way the entire thing falls is that, if you've taken PCM, you can do any course. If you've taken, commerce, you can do arts also. And if you've taken arts, you can only do arts. So if you were to divide this entire thing into STEM stream and then commerce stream and art stream, a STEM student can do commerce and arts, a commerce student can do commerce and arts, and the art student can only do arts kind of courses. So keep your options open. Then saying that because I've taken PCM, I only have to do engineering is not necessarily true. Increasingly, some of the liberal arts programs that are coming up, the BSc programs that are coming up, are far, far better than what anyone can imagine. So you need to think on those lines in terms of what are the liberal arts courses that you can do. So like you can do, as I said, BSc mathematics, you can do BSc physics, you can do BSc chemistry, you can do BSc honors in mathematics, and so on and so forth. So think slightly laterally than going and doing, thinking of it on the very old beaten traditional path, which is that if you do PCM, you only have to do engineering, is as wrong as to think that, if I don't like engineering, also I have to do engineering, is completely wrong. So that's another thing that you must work on. And the third thing is, when you think of this whole thing, you also need to develop cross-functional abilities, which means that if you look at the grouping of the engineering courses, you actually have computer sciences, you have health sciences, you have mechanical engineering, and all those kind of things. And so you actually have groupings. Within the groupings, you need to be slightly more flexible, right? So if you're an electronic engineer, you should be able to work in robotics side also, right? Or if you're a robotics guy, you must be able to work in health sciences also. So you must ensure that you develop cross-functional skills so that you're not typecast or only looking at certain kinds of jobs. Within engineering, the subjects are broader. Like even in civil engineering, you need a data analytics guy or a computer programmer, because these things are driven by machines more than men, right? So you need to have cross-functional expertise. So if you're a civil engineer and if you don't understand computers and systems and those kind of things, you will be as at risk of not getting a job as much as if you're a computer engineer and you don't learn anything else, you might still have a problem. So develop cross-functional skills. And most importantly, remember one thing, that what you're about to get into, which is undergrad, is only the first step in your long journey of learning and deriving some benefit out of it. So for you to think that because you've gone and done, say, for example, mechanical engineering, you'll retire as a mechanical engineer somewhere, or something to do with mechanical engineering, is wrong. Because, for example, if you look at me, I'm a chartered accountant. Then I became a media man. I launched, I worked at Outlook for about 10, 12 years. And then I'm now a career counselor. Now, if someone asks me, how did I become a career counselor? It is nothing to do with my qualification. It's all to do with what I learned over my journey of being a professional, right, at my workplace. So, in the same way, you look around you, you check with your own parents, what they studied and what they're doing currently, many of them, they won't be in a relationship. So that is something that you must remember. And lastly, because you have time and space in your hand, you need to show to your employer how you have greater inquisitiveness to learn more, right? So when you have 3 months of your time, adds one more skill, one more certificate to your resume, so that when you appear for an interview somewhere, you say, listen, I had 3 months of my extra in my hand, so I also learned this particular certification because that's what I'm interested in. So if you're doing, for example, mechanical engineering or mechatronics, add one certification. It might be a 3 to 6 month course of robotics, right? And that might be a online come practical or whatever it is. If you do that, when you go into a job in mechatronics engineering and you go for a company which is largely into mechatronics and robotics, you will suddenly realize that you will be ahead of the queue, because you will be able to tell the interviewer on the other side that your keenness to work in the space, that you did not waste your 6 months time or 3 months time, but added a skill set because you're very keen to learn. And that is very important. Your intent to learn and derive benefit out of your hard work is very, very important. And not just, so don't start blaming the external environment for everything that is happening wrong. Despite these tough times, people are recruiting. Despite these tough times, people are getting jobs. If you not got it, you don't blame the COVID. Having said that, how you use the COVID time, how you use this 6 months time to 1 year time to add some more learning to yourself becomes more important. So I will stop here and I'll request Arunji to ask any questions that you have. But that is my broad level of thought process in this thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, there is a general question. Many students are asking, is high salary packages are branch specific or talent specific? Some students are thinking it's branch specific. Some people are thinking it's a talent specific. So it's a general query from many of the students.
No, I think the thing is that, the salary package is a direct correlation between the supply and demand, right? For example, if there is greater demand for computer specializations, and there are more companies that are recruiting those kind of people, there'll be a higher salary for that. But that's only in the short term. In the long run, it is a skill set and your talent that takes over, right? It doesn't mean that a guy who's a civil engineer will not be the CEO of a company and a computer science guy would be a CEO of a company. I can tell about myself. When I joined the first job that I had, my salary was far lower than many of my contemporaries. But when I left my formal employment, now I'm an entrepreneur, so there is nothing called salary for me. But when I left my formal employment, I was drawing about 7-8 times of what the others were drawing between my contemporaries. So the first salary is possibly a function of the demand supply situation. If there is greater demand for a certain kind of skill set, that skill set will command more salary, and the skill set that has lesser in demand will have a lesser salary. But over a longer period of time, the skill set, your talent takes over, and the talent would be more rewarding because people believe that you are a multifunctional guy, you are flexible, you are resilient, you are you can lead, you can strategize, you can plan. So those things take over. So to begin with, I do think that the demand supply situation at this point in time is in favor of certain kind of professions, and those professions will possibly have a greater salary. But that is a short-term thing, and you should never look at education of what happens immediately after I pass. It takes 5-10 years for 10 years for you to derive the right value for yourself, or put a right value for yourself, and that is obviously based on your talent, your skill set, and your hard work.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is another query. What is your view on the growth rate of career in mechanical engineering or any core branch or branches like civil engineering, electronics and communication engineering?
So I think I answered this initially, but let me explain to you. You look at the broad buckets or clusters of engineering that you have. You have computer sciences, which has IoT. You have machine learning, blockchain. Then you have virtual reality, gaming, robotics. All these things are a part of the computer science engineering, right? Now, that is one group of things that you have, and then you also have IT, which adds cybersecurity and all those things as a part of that, right? Then you have another thing, which is health sciences. And health sciences has, you have biotechnology, you have nanotechnology, chemical engineering also to a certain extent is a part of health sciences as I see it. And then you obviously have increasingly health sciences also is recruiting people from, electronics and communication, mechatronics, robotics, because they're developing technologies which would largely be remote controlled and those kind of things. So even these people get into the health sciences bracket if they're flexible enough, right? Right. And then you also have mechanical, which deals with mechanical, mechatronics, automotive design, production, industrial engineering, and so on and so forth. Then you have the other bucket, which is civil, industrial, infrastructure, fire and safety, and all. Now, each of these things have their own demand supply constraints at any point in time. But the one who's done computer sciences or any of those things will travel across any of the other three things also, because whatever you do, there are certain skill sets that are needed in that space. Now, would a civil engineer be needed in a hospital? Yes, as far as safety and industrial design and those kind of things are concerned. But would a computer scientist be more needed in every hospital? Yes. There is absolutely a need for a few set of people who are computer scientists and IT people to be working even in a hospital. So there is somehow over a period of time, you will notice that there's certain kind of skill set that are needed across the companies, whatever the industry is about, right? And that seems to be, as I see it now, the computer sciences domain, which has all the skill sets I talked about, which is gaming, virtual reality, AI, machine learning, blockchain, IoT, robotics, and so on and so forth. So any of these skill sets would be required in a hospital, to a civil engineering company, to a factory, or whatever it is. So the relative importance of that is how can you be cross-functional in terms of your flexibility and your learning, so that even if you're for example, a mechanical engineer, you jump onto from mechanical to mechatronics to robotics and become a part of the organization. And that skill set needs to be developed. Even when you're developing the curriculum, at an undergrad level, it is criminal to slot a student to be said, okay, you are a mechanical engineer, so you're going to be working on a factory and nowhere else. The day you do that, you do a lot of disservice to the student. So your pedagogy, your curriculum should ensure that he also learns a few things from the other side also, so that at some point in time, for a mechanical, he should be able to jump onto mechatronics in a very flexible way, because you add that small subject, which is a minor or a major, so that he suddenly gets onto from mechatronics, he jumps to robotics and becomes a part of the biggest, my belief is over the next 10-15 years, the world would be investing a lot more in health sciences and health infrastructure. How can you be a part of that? So if you can add for your civil or a mechanical or engineering things, a bit of what is needed for health sciences in terms of health infrastructure or hospitality, hospital administration, or those kind of things, you suddenly make the student a lot more capable and able to be traveling or traversing the jobs which are beyond just mechanical. And that is important. So if you ask me what is important, there is nothing called importance. It's about how flexible you are, how you develop a curriculum where he can be slightly cross-functional and will be able to traverse from one domain to another domain with relative ease. Because what is bachelor's of engineering? Ultimately, it's a very, very basic foundational thing. You're not learning to be, like when you do mechatronics, you're not learning to be suddenly a mechatronics engineer the moment you jump out. You still have to add a lot more skill sets to it, which is at a job. Then add a bit more specialization to it, maybe at a master's level, and then you become an expert at that. Till then, you are very foundational. And that foundational things can be created within 6 months for a person who understands the basics and has good logic, good reasoning, good mathematical abilities, and good understanding of physics, how physics works, right? So you need to be slightly careful about this whole thing. Like if you're taking chemical engineering, there is no reason why, and you look at pharmacy industry, a lot of pharmacy companies employ chemical engineers, right? So you need to be slightly creating a broader pedagogy and broader curriculum at a bachelor's level to help the student traverse this uncertain times with relative ease.
Thank you, sir. In fact, this is for your information. We do provide a lot of flexibilities during the BTech in our curriculum. President, sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, surely. Thank you, Maheshwarji. I've been listening to you with great patience. And what I discovered, you talk about a skill set, you talk about talent. The issue which I intend to talk to you and like to get enlightened from your side is, I'm born with certain talent. This is called inborn talent one. Clear? And something that I have to acquire. Right? What I acquire from market space, what I acquire from the real life interactions, and this one. So issue is how to blend what I have in me and what I acquired from the market space. This is the first part. Second part is most of us do not know what are we good at. Had you known that you are really good at the career, probably you wouldn't have invested or wasted 10, 20 years that you've done while trying out what are you going to do. So do you have a system or mechanism or kind of what I can say the process in which I know that you are good at this? For example, if you're good at singing, why you waste your time for doing this BSc technology or biology, etc.? So what is that mechanism or process or system in which what I have inborn can be capitalized, or else I go and acquire the what I can say the hit and trial method only. What is your take on this issue, sir?
So I agree with you to a certain extent, but I also disagree with you. See, a lot of people, when I started my career, I come from a place where English speaking is not the best, right? I studied in a college where people speak in the regional language and not English. Now, that obviously creates a set of limitations for you when you want to, see the larger world where everyone is speaking in English and all. So I did my CA, right? And because I was a topper in CA, I was called for interviews to multiple MNCs and all. And there I also faced up to all the IIMs who know how to present themselves, who know how to deliver or impress people through the presentations and all. And I didn't even touch a computer till that point in time. But once I got onto a job, and that's only the initial thing, which I can call a passport. But the real thing would be once I am into the system where I am working along with the other set of people who also came into the job, which might be IIMs and beyond that also. Within 6 months, I understood how to speak, how to present myself, how to be as polished as they were, and so on and so forth. The thing is, it is because students or children are denied the right environment that they lack some skill sets. A lot of people initially told me that I'm an introvert, I cannot speak good English, so don't go into selling or marketing or anything like that. Today, if you ask me to sell something, I will sell it to you, because it's concern of belief and conviction. And obviously the language skills add to the entire thing. So I don't believe that people are born with certain skill sets. People acquire those skill sets over a period of time in terms of the ecosystem or environment that you live in. But yes, the agreement that I'll go with you is that, people, there are two, possibly the broad division that I can do is some set of students are very logical, rational, and think from the right side of the brain, and some people think from the left side of the brain, which is on the arts, history, philosophy, whatever it is, right? So you can broadly categorize people in terms of whether they're towards the sciences or the arts. There is nothing that makes a art student not touch science, or nothing that a science student cannot do arts, right? But having said that, people have an inclination to say that I want to do this kind of a thing and I don't want to do this kind of a thing. Like people who want to be in music but wouldn't want to be in terms of a career or a profession. It can be a hobby that he'll still be dabbling with in a lab. So for me to bracket to slot a child to say that this is what you're good at is okay. But to say that you're not good at the following is not okay for me, because a lot of people told me what not to do, which exactly is what I'm doing currently, right? So for me, a child acquires his knowledge from the ecosystem that he has. Put a child who's born in a place where there is no education at all, and put them into the home of Sri Ramanujam, who is the biggest mathematician. Trust me that he'll become a mathematician as he move along. Now, has he been inborn with mathematical skills because he stayed with Ramanujan? No, going by your theory, he shouldn't be a mathematician. But you put him in Mr. Ramanujam's home and let him live with him and grow with him. He'll be a mathematician as you move along, which is where you actually see, when you talk of this entire thing of why a lawyer's son becomes a lawyer, or a accountant's son becomes an accountant, or an actor's son, because they're grown in that ecosystem. It's not just about someone giving a hand to pull you up, but you only grown with that entire thing, and you start acquiring those skill sets, and those skill sets become your profession also over a period of time. Some people fail, most people succeed, and that's how it is. So I don't believe that we're born with a talent, but we do acquire a talent by staying in an ecosystem that is there. Like if ICFA has, for example, the best value is that you bring a student from the remotest corner of Rajasthan where they don't speak English at all, and put them in a university like ICFA in Jaipur or Hyderabad or wherever it is, where they only speak or communicate in English. Trust me, within 1 year he will acquire those skill sets and he'll become as smart and as good as others also, while also having this inbuilt knowledge about it. And this has been proven multiple times over. A lot of recruiters, by the way, I must tell you, like I know ICICI Bank, it has a special weightage for students who come from tribal areas, because they believe that the tribal area students are very smart and understanding of mathematics and all, because they understand maths and all very well, but they don't communicate well, so they can't present themselves well, so they don't get a job. So they give a 10% mark on the communication skills so that they come in, and the best performers over a period of time are the people who have great math abilities, which they've anyway working hard and all. Just that the environment that has been denied to them, because of which they have an initial handicap, which is taken care of.
If I say, Maheshwarji, you said that is ecosystem. For example, my father happens to be a great film actor. I can also become an actor, but what's the guarantee I'll be as successful as he happens to be? If that would have been any indicator and barometer, probably the Star Sons would have been stealing the show on the silver screen,
Absolutely.
which is not the case.
Yeah.
So my issue, which I intend to force, is very simple: is the life that you take it, how you take it, and how you encounter it. Every incident that we come across teaches us so many things. I always say is nothing but experience that make you wiser, that make you smarter, and that make you more acceptable in the situation. One.
Absolutely.
First part.
With you.
Yeah. Second part, which I intend to share with you, is that now we run the university. Ours is self-financing university. Clear. Now we cannot have the Pandora of courses to be offered. Right. So according to you, what are those streams which are going to happen next 4 years from now, when when my students will be out for the market, maybe as an entrepreneur, maybe as a to be employee, or as the case may be. Because right now, if I ask you go for this particular course, after 4 years, there is no kind of these things. And since you happen to into this industry for years together, you can always read the writing on the wall. What's going to happen that we should do and to grow? Your take, please.
Yeah. So, sometime back at Careers, we've done a study of the 25 courses that will have a great future moving forward. And this we talked of 2025, 2030. What are the courses
Right.
that you have? And I'll broadly list them out to you so that you can understand that. The first one is app development, because everything would at some point in time will be on an app. So, even if, whatever you do, you will be on an app if you're selling something. Or if you have a customer facing interface, then it will be an app. So app development would be one. Building automation would be another one, because there's a growing concern towards carbon footprint has led to a rising demand for energy efficient buildings. So so building automation in terms of the security within the building, how the systems would work, how they'll interact with the with everything. So building automation would be another one. Cyber security is a big thing, because data, the entire thing that you have to come with, cyber laws, how to follow the cyber law, how to ensure that you are compliant with the security systems, the data leakages that you have. So those things will become another one. So the third one is cyber security. Data analytics, all of us know about it. Digital marketing is the fifth one. E-learning, because increasingly there are two reasons why I say e-learning. Right now, as we speak, everyone is learning a remote mode. And more importantly, if you want to make education affordable, then you need to use technologies to bring down the cost of education. So for me, e-learning is another big one. Genetics is very big, because with all the information that we have, we now know that genetic modification is a possibility. And science continues on the expedition, and opportunities will continue to grow as far as genetics is concerned. So genetics is another one. Then geriatric care, because India is slowly becoming we have more people becoming older on the other side, and by about 2030 you will actually have about we're dealing with about 300-400 million people who will be more than 60 and need care. So geriatrics care is another one. Healthcare technology is another one, because the medical industry is really expanding. It has a huge need for qualified technicians. And vocational education is becoming popular, and various education providers are collaborating with external training partners equipped with the resources for imparting hands-on education in medical technology. So healthcare technology would be very big. Impact funds and impact investing would be big, because increasingly CSR is becoming bigger and bigger. So anything to do with social services and impact investing would be very big. Insurance, because world over, every country has a deep dive on insurance, where almost everyone is covered for everything that you can think of. It can be medical, life, health, a job, you name it, home, and everything. And India is not covered to that extent. So insurance would be very, very big moving on. And then you have food technology, because increasingly people are looking at different kinds of food, right? So food technology is very big. Like already grocery shopping is a testament of the country's, insatiable appetite that you have for processed food. So what is processed food for you? What is ready to eat food? So these kind of things will become bigger and bigger, because people are living alone. People are living, are not trying to cook at home increasingly, and you actually have ready to eat food. So food technology will be very big, and that's where NIFTEM and those kind of institutions have been cropping up of late. Machine learning, we already discussed this. And then, at some point in time, you will have remote sensing, GIS, and all those things will be big. Organic agriculture will be very big moving forward. So, and there are, by the way, for all these things, we also listed out the courses that are offered and who are offering those courses, by the way. Renewable energy is very big. So you need to start working on that. Like, for example, renewable energy, if you look at it, DTU offers a course. Terry University, which is in Delhi, offers a course. IIT Bombay and Delhi and Kharagpur have a course on renewable energy. NIT Trichy has a course in renewable energy, and so on and so forth. VIT, SRM, all these people have a thing. And organic agriculture, I talked to you. Anand Agriculture University in Gujarat has one. BHU has a course, and Tamil Nadu Agriculture University has a course. So there are, all these people are having. Robotics is big, as I told you. Urban planning, because we are becoming a more, the metros are becoming busier and more claustrophobic by the day, more traffic, more people, and also urban planning would be very big in terms of how you lay your roads, how you plan your roads, how you plan your cities. Chandigarh is one of the best planned cities. It is because the planning of urban Chandigarh was very good, right? So that's how it is. Then social media management, because all of us are, wellness management is going to be, so healthcare industry I earlier talked of, now wellness. So we talked of tourism, there is wellness tourism, so that will be very big as you move along. Urban transport, because we talk of metros, rails, city metros, bus transportation, commutation, that will be big. Waste management would be big. 3D printing, 3D animation, or augmented and virtual reality would be. So these are the 25 courses that we listed out, which we thought would have a huge future, because the world is moving in that direction in terms of healthy food, proper distribution, proper technology, proper urban planning, healthcare. So anything to do with, if you notice, technology and healthcare is pretty up there. And then the modern sciences in terms of planning and architecture and those kind of things.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a question from the audience. What was your vision and point of motivation for starting Career 360?
Oh, Yogesh, that's I don't want to go there, yeah. But I don't want to go about motivation and all. But I think the objective is simple. I'll bring it down to a base minimum level, which is objective. The objective is that when you privatize anything, there is a mushrooming of those things, right? Education and health are very close to me. And if you look at education itself, somewhere around 90s, I think the privatization started under Arjun Singh. There are many universities that started, getting into the space. Many more private players were getting into the place. And when you privatization is important, because obviously the government or the state, the nation doesn't have the resources to create so much infrastructure to teach so many students. But when you privatize, then it has to be orderly, it has to be systematic, it has to be transparent. And that I found it missing when the privatization started, because a lot of institutions and universities were lying through the teeth, making any claims, because they saw education as a business. I'm not for one moment against universities working on viability, sustainability, and profitability, but there's a dramatic difference between profitability and profiteering. There is a dramatic difference between marketing and misleading. There's a dramatic difference between greed and an objective to create a viable, profitable, sustainable sustainable university. So the larger objective has to be protected, and that can happen only when there's a watchdog, which creates an information ecosystem where students take decisions based on objective information and then perception. Right? It should not be that the guy who shouts the loudest is the right person. It should be also the guy who's silent, but he's actually more right than anyone else in the hall. So for me, it's about creating an information ecosystem which is based not on perception but on objective data, which is where Career 360 is. I'm hoping that at some point in time we'll create a information ecosystem where every student looks at Career 360 data to understand which is a better college, which is a better course, and go through that. And just to add to that whole thing, a lot of people think that if they get into IIT, that's the best thing around. How many of you know that if you were to remove computers and IT, IIT Delhi places only 50-60% of its students, which means that 30-40% students of the non-computer IT students are not being placed. Now, a lot of people would give up the computer sciences, seat in a decent college to take a not so decent course in IIT Delhi because it's IIT Delhi. And that should be avoided. And that if I were to tell you that in IIT Delhi, these courses had 100% placement, but these courses only had 30% placement or 40% placements, it opens up your eyes, and you might just go on to some other university which has 100% placement for those courses, right? So data will help you decide. Perception will not help you decide. My advice to students will be that whenever they want to join a college or a course or a university, please research, because there is enough and more data today to help you, guide you to, and explain to you which is a better college and a course for it at every local level. And I'm out there to create that kind of an ecosystem.
Sir, there is another query from the students. Which branch is most suitable if somebody want to make career in government sector?
I think, see, there is nothing called which branch and all. Like, if you look at it, UPSC for the last few years has been, getting students from the sciences stream to be more successful because they have a better pedagogy and understanding of mathematics, logic, and reasoning, right? But having said that, you look at all the civil servants today that are there. They came from liberal arts background. They have done history, sciences, philosophy, psychology, and all, and they've become big people out there. So. You actually used to have earlier GATE, which used to ensure that you join the PSU system, right? It can be the GAIL, BHEL, and all were recruiting their people from the GATE examination. It was one of the examinations that they will use to shortlist candidates for their own things. But I would not suggest that you prefer a course based on ultimately saying that I want to be in a government job, because I've also seen a lot of people wasting their lives in pursuit of government jobs. I've seen people wasting 5-7 years preparing for IAS and sitting in Lakshmi Nagar in Delhi and preparing, and then ultimately after 7 years they don't know what to do and they get on to any job that comes their way. So don't waste your time thinking that you will ultimately want to get into a government service. Study, keep yourselves open, have a good learning, and that learning might make you get out a job immediately. And if you don't get it, you can continue the parallel path of applying and appearing for the entrance exams for the government services. But to think that ultimately I'll become a retired tahsildar in government service is the worst plan that you will have. Never plan for that, because 95% of those people are struggling around today.
Thank you, sir. We are getting a lot of questions. I think this will be the last question. Time is very less.
Yeah, please.
Sir, there is a question. Electronic gadget customers are abruptly increasing. Networking is also going stronger day by day. India is also becoming a key hub for manufacturing of electronic gadgets or products. But still, number of enrollments in the BTech EC program are less in last few years. Is there any your view on this? How can we increase the number of enrollments in the electronics and communication?
No, actually, if you look at it, if you take computers and IT out, the third most preferred branch is ECE in a sense at this point in time, as I see it. And that's rightfully so. The thing is, students have a pecking order, and that's based on the placements or the demand for those skill sets, as I see it now. And there is nothing judgmental about that, because people, the immediate objective of many students should be that I must study and get on to a job. And that is fair, right? With all the thing that we say that pursue your passion, pursue your conviction and all, there is an immediate need also. And my need and my desire need not be the same. Right. I might enjoy something, but I might be ending up doing something else. Right. So my perception is that EC is one of the top 3 in the pecking orders, and that is rightfully so, because as you said rightly, mobile technology is really the thing, networking is the real thing, and so on and so forth. And to think that EC's enrollments are falling, I have not seen the numbers honestly, but in the pecking order, I know that it is normally in the 3, and that is what, if you go through the counseling process of the IITs and NITs also, you will see that in the pecking order, EC comes as the 3rd one.
President, sir.
Yes. Should I say more?
We are almost at the end of the session, sir.
Right, but this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new era. And Maheshwarji, we are willing to work together for a better cause of students. ICFA University always support the cause of empowering students and letting students so that they can turn out to be a better citizen in days to come too. The courses that we do, maybe engineering, maybe commerce, maybe management, etc., simple eyewash. We need what? A good, responsible citizen who can take care of us nicely, of their parents nicely. And right now, what I personally foresee, I think perhaps you missed out or you have it at the back of your mind. Today, I feel a great sense of insecurity if I become successful. Perhaps what Star has done only 2 days back could be my way if I don't succeed. So I personally feel the readiness on the part of student to accept failure. Failure is not that you're out of the game. Failure means let's reconsolidate and let us bounce back. So I don't know how many of us do teach a student one fail doesn't mean you're out of the race in their life. No. Perhaps I feel at Equa University we also do and take up that who say you have to be the top? Why should you be on the top? Lead a life that brings happiness. And for being happiness, I realized being top in the course doesn't play much role. I have been topper all through my life, but I feel happiness is something more than that. So we devise those courses, we devise those mechanical processes wherein a person can contribute significantly. I have seen my colleagues who are doing those kind of services which may not be in the limelight. They are doing for travel services, they are doing for some kind of services for those who are not so access to the well-being in their life. So but perhaps I believe a courses should give us responsible citizen, b should learn to fail and bounce back, this what we do,
Uh,
sir.
Thank you very
No,
much, sir. Very, sir. Sir, your concluding remarks and your message to the students.
no. The simple thing I will tell the students is this: that as I said earlier, rather, the disruption that is happening currently is not your responsibility. You're not the one who triggered this. Two, everyone is facing it. So the trouble that you're going through is something that everyone else in the system is going through. Just please, this is a free ticket. Use this as a free ticket in terms of adding some more skill sets, some more learnings for you. The thing that you will be blamed for is if you were to not use this time, and someone would say, okay, this 1 year there was nothing that was happening and I was sitting idle at home. That will be a black mark against you. Not that you're not placed or you did not get the right space or anything like that. So please, for God's sake, use this time for what is adding to what you learned, so that you are slightly ahead of the queue when everything is back to normal. And I don't see it taking a long time for everything to be back in normal. I think 3-6 months is what we'll take to, because we are a resilient country, so we'll come back to normal. It's very soon. So in the interim, don't brood, don't be depressed, don't be disappointed, don't be in a state of depression and all. These things are not needed for you, because as I said, you're not responsible for what is happening around you. And create a path for yourself where there is in the beginning you actually have a broader perspective and a broader career path. Don't slot yourself to be saying I want to be only this. Be a bit more flexible, a bit more resilient, develop cross-functional expertise, cross-functional knowledge and talent, so that when everything is normal, you can actually travel or traverse the job or the career paths depending on what interests you than what you just studied. Thank you so much. Arunji, you're muted.
Thank you very much, sir. We have Dr. S.S. Jain. He's a very senior academician and retired Joint Director from the Government of Rajasthan. I request, sir, to please pass on word of thanks.
Mr. Very nice, sir. I am very thankful to you for your knowledgeable and career-boosting speech for the students, and very encouraging speech for the students. I thank you very much. And I will say that you rightly said that once you get the job, initial salary package is not very important. What you do in your service period, that is more important. How you prove yourself is very important. It is not the first salary, as Arunji asked, that how many packages you will get. It is more important to get a seat or step in the bus. Then you will get the seat automatically if you have the skills. तो ये मेरा कहना है कि यदि आप लोग में काबिलियत है तो अपनी जगह अपने आप बनाएंगे, और काबिलियत नहीं है तो चाहे कितना ऊंचा पैकेज ले, थोड़े दिनों में बाहर निकाल के जाएंगे. सो इट इज माय सबमिशन, स्टूडेंट जो सुन रहे हैं कि भाई इनिशियल पैकेज पे ध्यान मत दीजिए, अपनी काबिलियत, अपने स्किल सेट को इम्प्रूव कीजिए, और जैसा माहेश्वरी जी ने बताया है उसी हिसाब से अपने आप को प्रूव करिए. देन यू विल बी ऑटोमेटिकली, दुनिया आपको चाहने लगेगी. सो वेरी वेरी थैंक यू माहेश्वरी. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for spending time with us. We are really grateful to you. Thank you, sir. And we are also very grateful to Sudhakar Rao, sir, the Director of Branding, for his kind support. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.